I cheated and blamed it on my disabled husband, and now he's filing for divorce. So my husband Greg has been in a wheelchair for like 3 years now. Car accident messed up his spine. He can still work from home and do most stuff, just can't walk. We adapted pretty well, honestly. About 8 months ago, I started working late. Like, really late. My coworker Josh and I had this project, and one night it kept happening. I told myself it was just stress relief or whatever, but I knew it was garbage. Greg never suspected anything. I'd come home at like 10 p.m. and he'd have dinner waiting, asking about my day. Made me feel like trash, but not enough to stop, apparently. Then one day, Greg's brother Kyle came to visit. Kyle's staying in our guest room for a week. Third night he's there. I come home at my usual late time, and Greg's face is different. Not mad, just blank. We need to talk, he says. Kyle's sitting on the couch. Won't look at me. I'm thinking Kyle saw something or Josh texted at a bad time. My brain's going crazy trying to figure out what they know. Greg wheels closer. Kyle told me something today. I literally freeze. He saw you. Last week at that restaurant downtown. With some guy. My mouth goes dry. Josh and I grabbed lunch there. I thought we were being careful. And then my brain does this absolutely insane thing. Like I wasn't even thinking. The words just came out. That's rich coming from you. Greg's face goes confused. What? Don't play dumb, Greg. I know about her. Kyle's head snaps toward me. What are you talking about? I'm fully committed now. No going back. Your physical therapist. Amy. You think I don't notice how you text her at night? Greg's therapist, Amy, is like 60 years old. But I'm just saying words at this point. She helps with my exercises, Greg says slowly. Sure she does. I grab my phone, opening random texts. I saw the messages, Greg. Don't lie to my face. Kyle stands up. Are you serious right now? You know what? I'm not doing this. I head to our bedroom and slam the door. I can hear them talking in the living room but can't make out words. I'm shaking. What did I just do? I literally just accused my disabled husband of cheating to cover up my own affair. That's actually psychotic. I stayed in the bedroom for like 2 hours. When I came out, Kyle was gone and Greg was in his office. Door closed. Next morning, Greg's already up when I wake up. There's papers on the kitchen table. Divorce papers. His lawyer must have done them overnight somehow. Greg's family has money. They can make stuff happen fast. You're actually doing this? I ask. Yeah. He doesn't even look at me. I talked to Amy last night. She's willing to show her text to prove there's nothing there. I also pulled my phone records. My stomach drops. Meanwhile, Greg continues. Kyle did some digging. Talked to someone at your office. Got a pretty interesting story about you and Josh working late. I can't say anything. You're a piece of work, Greg says. I got hit by a truck and spent 2 years learning to live again. You were there for all of it. And then you do this? And blame me? Greg, I sign the papers. My lawyer's coming at 3 to pick them up. The lawyer shows up at 2:45. Greg and him go into his office. I'm sitting in the living room, papers in front of me, pen in my hand. The office door opens and Greg wheels out with Amy, his 60-year-old therapist. Except she's not 60. She's maybe 35, gorgeous, and she's holding Greg's hand. This is Amy's daughter, Greg says, also named Amy. She's been helping me with exercises for 6 months. My brain short circuits. We're engaged, the younger Amy says, showing a ring. Have been for 2 months. Greg was going to tell you after he filed. The lawyer sets down more papers. You never asked why Greg wanted a divorce so fast. He was already planning to leave. I sat there staring at the ring on Amy's finger. The younger Amy. The one I didn't know existed until 30 seconds ago. My brain felt like it was trying to reboot but kept getting stuck on a loading screen. The ring was simple. White gold with a small diamond. Nothing flashy, which was exactly Greg's style. He'd always said he didn't understand why people spent 3 months' salary on engagement rings when that money could go toward a house or a trip or something meaningful. I remember rolling my eyes when he said that, back when we got engaged. Now I realized it wasn't about being cheap. It was about being practical. This ring looked loved. Like it had been chosen with care rather than just price tags. Wait, I finally managed. You've been engaged for 2 months? The words came out cracked, broken. Like something inside me had shattered and the pieces were falling out through my voice. Greg wheeled closer, and for the first time I noticed he looked different. Not just today. Different in a way I should have seen weeks ago. He looked lighter. Like someone had removed a weight from his shoulders I didn't even know was there. His skin had color again. His eyes weren't tired anymore. The lines around his mouth that had deepened after his accident, the ones I'd attributed to chronic pain, had softened somehow. He looked like a man who was actually happy. And I hadn't noticed because I'd been too busy being somewhere else. Being with someone else. Yeah, Tessa. 2 months. You were so busy with Josh you didn't notice I stopped wearing my wedding ring 3 weeks ago. I looked at his hand. His ring finger was bare. How had I missed that? Had I really been that checked out of my own marriage? The answer, of course, was yes. Completely and totally yes. I tried to remember the last time I'd actually looked at Greg. Really looked at him. Not just glanced in his direction while thinking about work or Josh or what I was going to eat for dinner. Actual eye contact. Actual attention. I couldn't remember. Months probably, maybe longer. The older Amy, the one I thought was the only Amy, stepped forward. She was still in her scrubs from the clinic where she worked. Must have come straight from work. Her face was weathered but kind. with deep laugh lines around her eyes, the kind of face that had seen a lot of life and chosen to keep smiling anyway. I've known Greg since his accident. I saw what you did to him, the way you'd sigh when he needed help, the eye rolls when you thought nobody was looking. That's not, I started. Don't. Greg held up his hand. Just don't. I have 6 months of text messages where you told me you'd be home late because of work. My lawyer subpoenaed your phone records. Want to guess how many of those nights you were actually at the office versus at Josh's apartment? I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands went cold. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, fast and irregular like a trapped bird. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to walk in here and cry and apologize, and Greg would forgive me, because that's what Greg always did. He forgave everyone. His college roommate who stole money from him, his business partner who cut him out of a deal, his own parents who barely visited him after the accident. Greg was a forgiver. That was his thing. Except now he was sitting here with divorce papers and a fiancé and a look on his face that said forgiving me was the last thing on his mind. Kyle appeared from the hallway. I hadn't even realized he was still in the house. He was holding a tablet, scrolling through something with his jaw tight. Kyle had never liked me. Not really. He'd been polite because he was Greg's brother and that's what families did. But there had always been something in his eyes when he looked at me. Some kind of distrust I couldn't quite pin down. Turns out his instincts were better than mine. I also found your private Instagram, Kyle said. The one where you've been posting pictures with Josh since February. Real subtle with the captions, by the way. Working hard or hardly working with a heart emoji? My private Instagram. The one I was sure nobody from my real life knew about. I'd been so careful. Used a different email, different username, never tagged locations. But I'd made one mistake. One stupid mistake. I'd uploaded a photo with Josh at a coffee shop, and in the background you could see the logo through the window. Kyle must have recognized it. Must have dug from there. I wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. This was supposed to be the moment where I somehow talked my way out of everything, where I cried enough tears and said enough sorries that Greg would forgive me. But looking around the room at the 4 people staring at me with various degrees of disgust and pity, I realized there was no way out. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Holloway, I should inform you that if you contest these divorce proceedings, the evidence we've gathered will become part of the public record. That includes the hotel receipts, the text messages, the social media posts, and several witness statements from your coworkers. Witness statements? From my coworkers? Who talked? The question came out before I could stop it. Greg almost laughed. Seriously? That's what you're worried about right now? Who talked? Miranda from accounting, Kyle said flatly. She saw you and Josh in the parking garage 3 months ago. Told HR, but they buried it. Then there's David from marketing, who apparently walked in on you two in the supply closet back in March. And your own assistant, Kelly, who's been covering for you for months because she was afraid of losing her job. Kelly. Sweet, quiet Kelly, who always seemed nervous around me. The house is in my name, Greg said. His voice was calm, almost casual, like he was reading a grocery list. My parents helped with the down payment, so it's not marital property. My lawyer will explain the rest. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. 30 days? Greg, I can't just... You should have thought about that before you blamed me for your affair. He paused, tilted his head slightly. Actually, that's the part that really gets me. I could have maybe understood the cheating. We've been distant. I know the accident changed things between us. But accusing me? Making me out to be the bad guy when you knew I couldn't even physically leave the house most days for the first 2 years? His voice cracked on that last part. The first sign of emotion I'd seen since I walked in. And somehow that was worse than if he'd been screaming at me. The anger I could have handled. The disappointment? That was something else entirely. The younger Amy put her hand on Greg's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, natural, like they'd been doing it for months. Which, I realized, they had. I watched her fingers settle against his collarbone. Watched how he leaned into the touch without even thinking about it. This was muscle memory. Comfort that had been built over time, through countless small moments I'd never witnessed. When was the last time I'd touched Greg like that? Actually reached out to comfort him instead of just tolerating his presence? I couldn't remember. Who else knows? I asked. My voice came out barely above a whisper. About the affair? Just the people in this room for now, Greg said. But that's going to change real fast when you try to contest anything in this divorce. My lawyer has everything. The credit card statements from the hotel you and Josh went to in September. The flowers you had delivered to his apartment and tried to hide on our joint account. The text you sent your sister complaining about how boring I'd become. My sister, Wendy. She'd been telling me for months to just end things with Greg instead of sneaking around. I thought she was being supportive of my affair. Now I realized she'd probably been keeping receipts to cover her own ass if this ever blew up, because that's what people in my family did. We protected ourselves first. Always. I'm not signing anything until I talk to a lawyer, I said, trying to find some ground to stand on. That's fine. Take your time. Greg smiled, and it wasn't cruel. It was worse than that. It was indifferent. Like I was a stranger he was waiting to leave his house. My offer gets worse in 72 hours. After that, we do this the hard way and I tell everyone. Your parents. Your job. Josh's wife. I felt my heart stop. Actually stop. Like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. Josh's wife? Oh, did he not mention her? Kyle actually laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had been waiting for this moment and was enjoying every second of it. Yeah, Josh is married. Has been for 4 years. 2 kids. His wife Natalie is actually friends with one of my ex-girlfriends. Small world, right? Josh was married. The words kept replaying in my head like a broken record. Josh was married. Josh, who had told me his marriage ended years ago. Josh, who said his ex-wife was crazy and controlling and that's why he didn't talk about her. Josh, who said he was just waiting for the right time to make things official between us. Josh, who had been lying to me the entire time I'd been lying to Greg. 4 years. 2 kids. A wife named Natalie who existed this entire time while Josh was telling me he loved me. I thought I was the clever one. The one who had outsmarted her boring disabled husband. The one who had found something exciting and passionate while Greg sat at home being grateful I even stayed. But I wasn't clever at all. I was just another stupid woman who fell for a cheater. Another entry in what was probably a long list of mistakes Josh had made and gotten away with. I grabbed my phone and started texting Josh. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. The letters kept coming out wrong and I had to delete and retype every word. You should probably know, Greg said, watching me fumble with my phone, that we already sent the evidence to Natalie. About an hour ago. So, whatever he's about to tell you is probably going to be interesting. An hour ago, while I was driving home from work thinking everything was fine, while I was checking my makeup in the rearview mirror and humming along to the radio, they were destroying my life, dismantling everything I'd built with meticulous precision. My phone buzzed. A text from Josh. Just 2 words. Don't call. Then another. Natalie knows. I'm dealing with this. Don't make it worse. Don't make it worse. Like I was the one who had made things bad. Like he hadn't been lying to both of us the entire time. I stared at those messages until the screen blurred from tears. I didn't realize I was crying. I need to go, I said, standing up. My legs felt like they might give out. The room was spinning slightly and I had to grab the arm of the couch to steady myself. Go where? Kyle asked. Your boyfriend's dealing with his own mess. Your parents are on a cruise and don't know anything yet. Where exactly do you think you're going? I hadn't thought about it. I just knew I couldn't be in this room anymore, surrounded by people who knew exactly what I was, who saw through every excuse and every lie and every desperate attempt to make myself the victim. The walls felt like they were closing in. The air felt thick and hard to breathe. I needed to get out before I completely fell apart. Tessa. Greg's voice made me stop at the door. It was softer now, almost gentle, which somehow made everything worse. Take the papers with you. Read them. This is the best deal you're going to get. And for what it's worth, I really did love you. Past tense. Those last 2 words hit me harder than anything else he'd said. Past tense. Whatever we'd had, whatever I'd thrown away, it was gone. Completely and irreversibly gone. I grabbed the papers off the table and walked out the door. Got in my car. Sat there for probably 20 minutes without moving, just staring at the garage door of the house I was about to lose. The house where Greg and I had celebrated holidays and argued over bills and made love and slowly stopped being in love. The house where I'd first noticed something was different about him after the accident. How he moved through the world now. How dependent he was. The house where I'd started to resent him for something he couldn't control. My phone kept buzzing. Text from Wendy asking what happened. A missed call from my mom on the cruise ship, which meant someone had already called her. A voicemail notification from a number I didn't recognize. I played the voicemail. It was a woman's voice, shaky but controlled, like someone who had been crying recently but had pulled herself together for this call. This is Natalie Brennan, Josh's wife. I think we should talk. That was 3 days ago. Update 1. Okay. So I know the last post made me look like a complete monster. And honestly, I am. I don't know anymore. Everything's been a blur since I walked out of that house. Let me catch you up on what's happened since then. Because believe me, it's been a ride. The first night was the worst. I drove around for 2 hours because I didn't know where to go. Couldn't face my parents, even if they weren't on a cruise. Couldn't face Wendy because I was pretty sure she'd already heard and was probably writing her own version of events to make herself look innocent. Couldn't face my friends because most of them were actually Greg's friends first, and I figured they'd already picked their side. So I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. The kind with sticky menus and coffee that tastes like it's been sitting there since the morning shift. I ordered a plate of eggs I didn't eat and stared at the divorce papers until my eyes blurred. The terms weren't as bad as I'd expected. Greg was giving me 25% of our joint savings, which came out to about $47,000. I got to keep my car, my clothes, my personal belongings. He wasn't asking for spousal support even though he probably could have, given his income. What he wasn't giving me was anything else. Not the house, not his retirement accounts, not the stock portfolio his dad had helped him build, not a single piece of furniture or art or anything we'd accumulated over 8 years of marriage. I wanted to be angry about it, wanted to feel like I was being treated unfairly. But even in my most delusional moments, I knew he was being generous. If this went to court with all the evidence he had, I'd probably walk away with even less, and my reputation would be completely destroyed. The waitress refilled my coffee for the 4th time and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me but didn't push it. Smart woman. Around 2 a.m., my phone rang. Natalie, Josh's wife. I stared at the screen for 3 full rings before answering. This is Tessa. I know who this is. Her voice was different than on the voicemail. Sharper, more controlled. I've been looking at your text messages with my husband for the past 6 hours. I didn't know what to say. Sorry seemed inadequate. Anything else seemed worse. I'm not calling to yell at you, Natalie continued. I've done enough yelling today. I'm calling because I need to understand something. What? Did you know? About me? About our children? No. The word came out immediately, without hesitation. He told me you'd been divorced for 3 years, that you'd split up right after your second kid was born, that it was amicable but final. Silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing. That's almost exactly what he told Rachel, she finally said. And Megan. And the woman before that, whose name I still don't know. Rachel. Megan. I was number 4. Maybe more. How long have you known? I asked. About the cheating? About 2 years. Since I found texts from Rachel on his phone and he convinced me I was being paranoid. That I was imagining things. That she was just a work friend who flirted too much. But you stayed. I stayed because we have children. Because I thought maybe it was just one time. Because I believed him when he said he'd never do it again. Her voice cracked slightly. I was stupid. You weren't stupid, I said. And I meant it. You were just hoping for the best. We all do that. Is that what you were doing? Hoping for the best while you fucked my husband? The question hit me like a slap, which was probably exactly what she intended. I was being selfish, I admitted. I was unhappy in my marriage, and instead of dealing with it like an adult, I found someone who made me feel wanted. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't think about who else might get hurt. Clearly. We sat in silence for a moment. The waitress walked by and raised an eyebrow, asking without words if I needed anything. I shook my head. I'm divorcing him, Natalie said. Obviously. My lawyer is already drawing up papers. But I wanted to ask you something. Okay. When I file, I'm going to need witnesses. People who can testify to his pattern of behavior. Who can prove this wasn't just a one-time mistake, but a systematic pattern of deception. You want me to testify. Against Josh. I want you to tell the truth. In a legal setting. On the record. I thought about it. Josh, who had told me he loved me. Josh, who had promised we'd be together once he figured out his situation. Josh, who had been lying to everyone the entire time. Yes, I said. I'll do it. Good. A pause. For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I want to. It would be easier. But you were lied to just like I was. The only person I really hate right now is him. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in that diner until dawn, thinking about everything. About Greg and Amy. About Josh and Natalie. About all the lies we tell ourselves to justify the things we do. Then I paid my bill, got back in my car, and drove to a motel. Cheap place with a neon sign that buzzed. Paid for a week up front. Collapsed on the bed without even taking off my shoes. Sleep came eventually. Dreamless. Empty. Like my mind had finally decided to shut down and deal with everything later. Later came sooner than I wanted. The next morning, I woke to 12 new text messages. 3 voicemails. A Facebook notification telling me I'd been tagged in a post. I checked the Facebook notification first, because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment. Kyle had written a long post about supporting his brother through a difficult time. He didn't name me directly, but the comments made it clear everyone knew who he was talking about. People I'd known for years were saying things I can't even repeat. Someone called me a wheelchair-abandoning cheater. Someone else said they always knew there was something off about me. The text messages were mostly from people I hadn't talked to in months, suddenly reaching out to check if I was okay, which really meant they wanted the gossip, wanted to know if the rumors were true. I didn't respond to any of them. The voicemails were from my mom, my sister, and my boss. Mom was crying, asking what happened, saying Dad wouldn't tell her anything. Wendy was clipped and professional, saying we needed to talk. My boss was asking why I hadn't come to work and whether everything was all right. I called Wendy first. Finally, she said when she answered, I've been trying to reach you all night. I needed time to think. There's no time for thinking. The whole town is talking about this. Greg's family is making sure everyone knows what happened. And before you ask, no, I haven't told anyone anything. I'm not stupid. What do people think happened? They think you cheated on your disabled husband with a married man and then tried to blame Greg for an affair he didn't have, which is accurate. Actually, I closed my eyes. Yeah. Jesus, Tessa, I told you to leave him, not to do this. I know. What's your plan? You can't just hide in that motel forever. How do you know I'm in a motel? Because I know you. You're in some depressing place feeling sorry for yourself instead of figuring out how to fix this. She wasn't wrong. The motel room smelled like old cigarettes, and the carpet had stains I didn't want to think about. The TV remote was attached to the nightstand with a chain, like someone might steal it. I don't know if this can be fixed, I said. Then you need to cut your losses and get out. Sign whatever Greg is offering. Take the money and start over somewhere nobody knows you. That's your advice, run away? My advice is to survive this. And right now, surviving means accepting that you screwed up monumentally, and the best thing you can do is minimize the damage. I hung up on her, not because she was wrong, but because I didn't want to hear it. Let me start with the phone call with Natalie. I called her back the morning after everything blew up. I didn't know what to expect. Screaming, probably. Threats. That's what I would have done if I found out my husband had been sleeping with someone else. But Natalie was calm, terrifyingly calm. I know you thought Josh was single, she said. I've seen the texts. He told you our marriage ended 3 years ago. He did. I confirmed. He said that to 7 women that I know of. You're not special, Tessa. You're just the latest. 7 women. I was one of 7. The number felt like a physical weight. 7 women who had all believed the same lies. 7 women who had all thought they were special. 7 women who were all just entries in Josh's personal catalog of deception. I'm calling because I want you to testify, Natalie continued. When I file for divorce, I need witnesses. People who can confirm what he's been doing. And since you're going through your own divorce anyway, I already told you I would. Good. Then we understand each other. A pause. Let me be clear about something else. I'm not asking because I feel bad for you. I'm asking because you owe me. You slept with my husband in my bed while I was visiting my mother after her hip surgery. So yeah, you owe me. In her bed, while she was visiting her sick mother. The details kept getting worse. I didn't know what to say to that. She was right. I did owe her. When I file, my lawyer will contact you, Natalie said. Be honest. That's all I'm asking. For once in your miserable life, just tell the truth. She hung up. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time after that, thinking about what she said, about being one of 7, about Josh telling me he loved me while probably texting another woman under the table. I'd thrown away my marriage for a man who saw me as just another name on a list. That first week was rough. I moved into a motel because I couldn't face staying with family. Everyone knew by then. The story had spread through our social circle like wildfire. Someone had even posted about it in one of those local Facebook gossip groups. Wendy came to see me on day 3. She brought a bottle of wine and sat on the edge of the bed in my dingy motel room. I told you to leave Greg, she said. Not cheat on him. Thanks. That's really helpful right now. I'm serious, Tessa. You could have ended things clean. Walked away with half of everything. Instead, you gave him all the ammunition he needed. I know that now. Do you? Because Mom's freaking out. Dad won't even say your name, and Greg's family is making sure everyone knows exactly what happened. What are they saying? Wendy pulled up something on her phone and handed it to me. It was Kyle's Facebook page. He'd posted a long status update about supporting his brother through a difficult time and how some people show their true colors when their partner becomes disabled. The comments were brutal. People I'd known for years were calling me things I can't even repeat. Someone I'd considered a close friend had written, "Always knew there was something off about her." He's not naming you directly, Wendy said, but everyone knows. I handed the phone back. What am I supposed to do? Sign the papers. Take what he's offering. Get out of town and start over somewhere nobody knows you. He's only giving me like a quarter of what we had. Because that's all you're entitled to, Tessa. The house was his. The investments are mostly from his injury settlement. You were going to get screwed in court anyway. At least this way you don't have to watch everyone stare at you while a judge reads your affair texts out loud. She wasn't wrong. Greg's lawyer had outlined exactly what would happen if I contested. They'd drag Josh into it. His wife would testify. They'd pull every text, every email, every receipt from those hotels. They'd paint me as someone who had abandoned her disabled husband for a liar who was cheating on his own wife. No judge was going to look kindly on that. I signed the papers that weekend. Dropped them off at Greg's lawyer's office myself because I couldn't face going back to the house. The receptionist barely looked at me, just took the envelope and said someone would be in touch. Her tone was neutral, professional. She'd probably seen 100 people walk in here and hand over the documents that ended their marriages. I was just another file number. Walking out of that building felt like walking out of my old life entirely. 20 years of marriage, over. 8 years of building something together, gone. And it was completely my fault. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time, just breathing. People walked past me without a second glance. The world kept turning like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just signed away everything I'd ever had. The next few weeks were a mess. I found a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town, close enough that I could technically still get to work, but far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew at the grocery store. The apartment was above a dry cleaner, and everything I owned smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals. The landlord asked for first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. I paid in cash because I didn't want a paper trail. The place had 1 bedroom, a bathroom with a shower that took 10 minutes to get warm, and a kitchen so small I could touch both walls if I stretched out my arms. The previous tenant had left curtains that didn't quite fit the windows and a smell in the carpet that no amount of cleaning could eliminate. It was depressing, but it was mine. Work was awkward. Josh had been transferred to another department, supposedly for project restructuring, but everyone knew the real reason. People looked at me differently now, whispered, when they thought I couldn't hear. The guy from IT who used to make jokes with me at the coffee machine suddenly couldn't make eye contact. Even people who didn't know the full story could tell something was wrong. Office gossip travels fast, and by the end of my first week back, everyone had their own theory about what had happened. Some thought I'd been fired and then rehired. Some thought there was a lawsuit involved. Some, the ones who'd talked to Kyle or seen his Facebook post, knew the truth. Those were the worst. They looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off the bottom of their shoe. My boss, Rhonda, called me into her office 2 weeks after everything went down. "This situation has created a hostile work environment," she said, not unkindly. She was a practical woman in her 50s who'd been with the company for 20 years. She'd seen scandals come and go. "I'm not blaming you entirely, but we need to discuss options. Are you firing me? No, but I'm offering you a transfer. Our Denver office has an opening. Same position, same pay. Fresh start. Denver, 1,000 miles away from everything and everyone I knew. The idea should have scared me. Packing up and moving to a city where I didn't know a single person. Starting over from scratch with nothing but a suitcase and some damaged credit. Instead, it felt like a lifeline. Can I think about it? Take a week. I spent that week going through the motions. Wake up, go to work, come home, stare at the walls of my tiny apartment, repeat. The only person who really talked to me was Wendy. And even she was getting frustrated with my moping. She came over one night with a bottle of wine and a box of takeout Thai food. We sat on my floor because I didn't have a couch yet, eating pad Thai out of containers and not really looking at each other. You made a choice, she said between bites. A bad one, but you're still alive. You still have a job. You still have options. Stop acting like your life is over. It feels over. It's not. It's just different. Now get off the floor and help me figure out where you're going to put furniture in this shoebox apartment. We spent the rest of the night measuring walls and looking at IKEA catalogs online. It was the most normal I'd felt in weeks. By the time she left, I decided two things. I was going to buy an actual couch, and I was going to take the Denver transfer. The next day, I told Rhonda I'd take it. 2 weeks later, I was loading a U-Haul with what was left of my life. The divorce was finalized by then. Greg got the house, most of the savings, and kept every piece of furniture we'd bought together. I got my clothes, some books, and a check for $47,000 that represented my entire share of 8 years of marriage. $47,000. That's what 8 years of my life was worth on paper. Wendy helped me load boxes. Mom and Dad didn't come. They said they were too busy, but we all knew that was a lie. Dad still wasn't speaking to me, and Mom only sent short texts asking if I was okay, without actually wanting to know the answer. The morning I left, Wendy showed up at 6 a.m. with coffee and donuts. She watched me tape up the last box and load it into the truck. Call me when you get there, she said as I climbed into the driver's seat. And actually call. Don't just text. I will. And Tessa? She leaned in the window, her face serious. Try to be better, okay? This is your chance to actually be a decent person. I drove away without looking back. Didn't even glance in the rearview mirror at the town I'd lived in for my entire adult life. It felt like the right thing to do. Like closing a book you never wanted to read again. The drive to Denver took 15 hours. I stopped twice to sleep, once at a rest stop, and once at a cheap motel that smelled like cigarettes and regret. The rest stop was somewhere in Kansas, and I sat in my car watching the sun set over flat farmland that seemed to go on forever. It was the most alone I'd ever felt in my life. When I finally pulled into my new apartment's parking lot, I sat in the U-Haul for a long time. This was supposed to be my fresh start, my chance to be someone different. But sitting there in the dark, all I could think about was Greg's face when he said, past tense. He had loved me, and I had destroyed it. And no amount of driving was going to change that. Update 2. It's been 3 months since I moved to Denver. I've been debating whether to post another update because honestly, part of me wanted to just disappear and pretend none of this ever happened. But people have been asking, and I think there's something to be gained from being honest about what comes next. So here's what's happened since I drove away from my old life. The first month in Denver was brutal. I didn't know anyone. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of this old building with no elevator, which meant hauling all my boxes up those stairs alone. My new coworkers were friendly enough, but cautious. Word had apparently spread even here, because someone at the home office had talked, and now I was the woman from that situation. I threw myself into work because it was the only thing I could control. Stayed late, came in early, volunteered for projects nobody else wanted. My boss, a guy named Terrence, noticed. "You're working yourself to death," he said after catching me at my desk at 8 p.m. on a Friday. "Is everything okay?" "Fine. Just trying to get up to speed." "You've been up to speed for 3 weeks. Go home. Get some rest." But home was just 4 walls and silence. So I kept working. Week 3. I got a call from Natalie, Josh's wife, now ex-wife, as she quickly informed me. "The divorce went through yesterday," she said. "I wanted you to know." Okay. I didn't know what else to say. He got barely anything. The judge saw the pattern. 7 women, Tessa, 7 that I could prove. There were probably more. "I'm sorry. Are you?" Her voice was sharp. "Because you never actually apologized. Not to me." She was right. I hadn't. "I'm sorry, Natalie. For all of it. For being stupid enough to believe him. For hurting you. For being part of something that caused you pain." Silence on the other end. Then, "Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear." She hung up. I never heard from her again. The thing about starting over is that nobody tells you how boring it is. Movies make it seem like you move to a new city and immediately find yourself, make new friends, discover who you were meant to be all along. The reality is a lot of takeout containers and Netflix and wondering if you made a massive mistake. I joined a gym because I needed something to do that wasn't sitting in my apartment feeling sorry for myself. Started running, which I'd never done before. Turns out when you're running, you can't really think about anything except how much your lungs hurt. It was the only time my brain would shut up. Month 2, I saw a therapist for the first time. Wendy had been bugging me about it, saying I needed to process what happened. I thought it was pointless, but I went anyway because I'd promised her. Dr. Yolanda was this tiny woman with gray hair and reading glasses that she was constantly pushing up her nose. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "You destroyed your marriage because you were unhappy but too cowardly to leave," she said during our 3rd session. "The affair wasn't about Josh. It was about escaping a situation you felt trapped in without having to actually confront it. Greg was in a wheelchair. I couldn't just leave. Yes, you could have. People leave difficult situations all the time. It's hard, but it's honest. What you did was take the coward's way out and then lie about it when you got caught. I wanted to argue with her, but she was right. The blaming him for an affair, she continued. That's the part that interests me. That wasn't just panic. That was a pattern. When have you done something similar before? I thought about it. Really thought about it. My senior year of college, I admitted. I cheated on an exam. When the professor confronted me, I said I saw the guy next to me looking at my paper first. He got expelled. I got away with it. Dr. Yolanda nodded like she'd expected this. So when you're cornered, your instinct is to redirect blame, to make someone else the villain, I guess. That's something we need to work on. Because you can start over in a new city, but if you don't change that pattern, you'll end up right back here. Therapy was hard. Harder than I expected. Every week, doctor. Yolanda would peel back another layer of excuses I'd built up over the years, and every week I'd have to confront something ugly about myself. But slowly, things started to shift. I made one friend in Denver. Her name was Clark, and she lived in the apartment below mine. We met when I accidentally flooded her bathroom trying to fix my own sink. She came upstairs furious, saw me crying in a puddle of water with a wrench in my hand, and her anger turned into laughter. You have no idea what you're doing, do you? She asked. None whatsoever. She helped me turn off the water, called her plumber friend, and then made me buy her dinner as payment. We started hanging out after that. Nothing intense, just occasionally eating together or watching movies. She knew I'd gone through a divorce but didn't ask for details. I was grateful for that. Everyone's got a past, she said once. I'm more interested in who you're trying to become. Month 3 was when things got complicated again. I was at the grocery store on a Saturday afternoon when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Tessa Moreno? This is Amy, Greg's fiancée. My stomach dropped. I stood there in the produce section staring at my phone for so long that an employee asked if I needed help finding something. I'm fine, I said. I texted back, yes. What do you need? Her response came quick. Greg is in the hospital. There were complications from his original injury. He's been asking for you. I read that message probably 15 times. Greg was asking for me? After everything? I called her back. What kind of complications? I asked when she answered. His spine. Something shifted. They're doing surgery tomorrow. Amy's voice was tired but not hostile. Look, I know this is weird, but he woke up from sedation yesterday and he kept saying your name. The doctor says it's probably just confusion, but I thought you should know. Why would you call me? I'm his ex-wife. I'm the reason. I know what happened. I was there, remember? But Greg is the one who wanted to reach out. Even if he's confused, that means something. She paused. You don't have to come. I just wanted to give you the choice. I sat in my car for an hour after that call. The groceries were getting warm in the back seat, but I couldn't move, couldn't think. Greg was asking for me. The man I'd betrayed, lied about, and tried to destroy was asking for me while he was scared and in pain. I called Wendy. Don't go, she said immediately. It's a trap. How is it a trap? His fiancée called me. I don't know, but nothing good can come from you showing up at his hospital bed. You're finally getting your life together. Don't mess it up. She had a point, but there was something else, something I couldn't quite name, that wouldn't let me just ignore this. I called Dr. Yolanda for an emergency phone session. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. That's why I'm calling you. No, Tessa, you do know. You just don't want to admit it. She was right. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I just wasn't sure if it was the right thing or just another way to make myself feel better. I want to go, I said finally. Not because I think Greg needs me, but because I never actually apologized. Not really. And if something happens to him, you want closure. Maybe. Is that selfish? Everything is selfish on some level. The question is whether your actions help or hurt. If you go there to make yourself feel better at his expense, that's harmful. If you go there to genuinely offer an apology with no expectations, that might be different. I booked a flight that night, called in sick to work the next day. By noon, I was landing back in the city I'd sworn I'd never return to. The hospital was on the north side of town, a big, sprawling complex that smelled like disinfectant and fear. I found Greg's room on the 4th floor. Amy was sitting outside, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she saw me coming. You came. I came. She stood, stretched. He's awake. Surgery's in 3 hours. I'll give you some time. I expected her to be angry, or at least cold, but she just looked exhausted. I realized this was probably harder for her than for me. She was about to marry this man, and here was his ex-wife showing up at the worst possible moment. Thank you, I said. He needed this. I don't know why, but he did. She walked toward the elevator. 10 minutes. Then the nurses will kick you out anyway. I pushed open the door. Greg was lying in the hospital bed, looking smaller than I remembered. There were machines beeping around him, tubes in his arms. His eyes were closed, but they opened when he heard me enter. Tessa. His voice was raspy. You came, Amy called. She said you were asking for me. I was. He gestured weakly to the chair beside the bed. Sit, please. I sat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I'm sorry, I finally said. For everything. The affair, the lying, blaming you. All of it. I was a coward and you didn't deserve any of what I put you through. Greg was quiet. Then, I spent a lot of time hating you. After you left, after everything came out, I'd lie awake thinking about all the things I wished I'd said. You had every right to hate me. I did. But then the anger faded and all that was left was sadness, I guess. Sadness for what we had and what we could have been. Greg, let me finish. He took a breath, wincing slightly. I'm not telling you this so you can feel better. I'm telling you because I need to let it go. Tomorrow I'm going into surgery and there's a chance things don't go well. I don't want to die holding on to that anger. I felt tears running down my face. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that I forgive you. Not for your sake, for mine. Amy's the one who helped me see that. Holding on to the past was just poisoning my future. She seems good for you. She is. A small smile crossed his face. She's everything you weren't, to be honest. Patient, honest, actually present. It hurt to hear, but I deserved it. I'm glad you found that, I said. And I meant it. Surprisingly. Are you happy? In Denver? I thought about my tiny apartment, my one friend, my brutal therapy sessions. I'm getting there. Slowly. Good. Greg's eyes were getting heavy. I'm tired. The meds are kicking in. I stood. I should go. Tessa? His voice caught me at the door. Don't waste this chance. To actually change, I mean. Not many people get that opportunity. I won't. I walked out of that hospital room feeling lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. The weight of what I'd done was still there. But something had shifted. Like a door had finally closed and I could stop trying to go back through it. Amy was in the hallway. How was it? She asked. Healing. I think, for both of us. She nodded. He's been talking about closure for weeks. I think he was afraid if he went into surgery without it, he'd never get the chance. Will he be okay? The surgery? The doctors are optimistic, but there are risks with any spinal procedure. She looked at me directly. Thank you for coming. I know it couldn't have been easy. It was the right thing to do. Maybe for the first time in a long time. I flew back to Denver that night. The next day, Amy texted me that Greg's surgery had gone well. He was recovering. She'd tell him, I asked. I didn't hear from them again after that. Didn't expect to. That chapter was closed. Update 3. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I moved to Denver. Since I left everything behind and tried to become someone worth being. I wish I could say it was a straight line from broken to fixed, that every day was better than the last. But that's not how healing works. At least not for me. There were setbacks. Lots of them. 2 weeks after I visited Greg in the hospital, I ran into Josh. He was at a coffee shop near my apartment, just standing there in line like he hadn't destroyed multiple lives and disappeared into thin air. I froze when I saw him. Then I felt something I hadn't expected. Nothing. No anger, no longing, no pain, just emptiness. He turned and saw me. His face went through about 15 emotions in 3 seconds before settling on something like embarrassment. Tessa. Josh. I didn't know you lived here. I didn't know you existed anymore. He flinched at that. Good. I'm here for a conference, he said quickly. Flying out tonight. I wasn't trying to. I don't care. And I meant it. Whatever you were doing or wherever you're going, I genuinely don't care. Natalie told me you testified, he said, lowering his voice. Against me. In the divorce. I told the truth, that's not against anyone. She took everything. The house, the kids, my retirement. Good. His face hardened. You know what? I forgot how cold you could be. And I forgot how good you were at being the victim. I picked up my coffee from the counter. Have a nice flight, Josh. I hope I never see you again. Walking away from him felt like finally closing a door I'd been trying to close for months. He had no power over me anymore. He was just a man who made bad choices. Same as me. The only difference was that I was trying to be better. After that, things started to actually improve. I got promoted at work. Nothing huge, just a step up to project manager. Terrence said I'd earned it through consistent effort. For the first time in my career, I'd gotten something based on actual work, instead of manipulation or shortcuts. Clark and I became actual friends. Not just neighbors who occasionally ate together, but real friends who talked about real things. I told her the whole story one night, all of it, and she just listened. So you were a garbage person, she said when I finished. And now you're trying not to be. Basically, that's all any of us can do. She poured more wine. My mom was an alcoholic, ruined my childhood. But she got sober when I was 20 and spent the next 15 years trying to make amends. She died last year. I miss her every day. Did you forgive her? Eventually. When I realized that holding onto the anger was only hurting me, it echoed what Greg had said in the hospital. About forgiveness being for yourself, not the other person. Therapy continued. Dr. Yolanda pushed me harder every session. We talked about my childhood, my patterns, my tendency to lie when confronted with my own failures. Slowly, I started to understand where it all came from. Your father was distant, she said once, and your mother covered for your mistakes because she wanted to avoid conflict. You learned that facing consequences was something that happened to other people. So I just never learned accountability? You learned to avoid it. There's a difference. Now you're unlearning. It was work. Hard, uncomfortable work. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually dealing with my problems instead of running from them. Then, 5 months after moving to Denver, Wendy called with news. "Mom's sick," she said. "Cancer. They found it during a routine checkup." The world tilted sideways. "How bad?" "They don't know yet. She's doing more tests." "But Tessa, I think you need to come home." Home. The place I'd sworn I'd never go back to. The place where everyone knew what I'd done and judged me for it. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "I know. But she's asking for you. Whatever happened with Greg, whatever people think about you, she's still your mom." I flew back 2 days later. The house looked exactly the same as I remembered. Same brick facade, same flower boxes, same front door that always stuck a little when you opened it. Dad was on the porch when I pulled up in my rental car. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. "She's inside," he finally said. Then he walked past me to his workshop in the garage without another word. Progress, I guess. At least he acknowledged my existence. Mom was in the living room, wrapped in a blanket despite it being 70 degrees outside. She looked thin, fragile in a way I'd never seen her. "Tessa," her face lit up. "You came?" "Of course I came." I sat beside her on the couch. We didn't talk about Greg or Josh or any of it. We talked about her tests, her treatment options, how she'd been feeling, normal mother-daughter stuff, or what passed for normal in our family. That night, after Mom went to bed, Wendy and I sat on the back porch drinking wine. "Dad hasn't said a word to me," I said. "Give him time. He's been processing. It's been almost a year, and you hurt him. Not directly, but the embarrassment, the whispers from neighbors and friends. You know how much he cares about reputation." "I know. That's part of why I never felt like I could make mistakes growing up. Everything had to be perfect. For him." Wendy was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you did it? The affair? Because you were tired of being perfect?" "Maybe partly. But mostly I did it because I was selfish and scared and too much of a coward to actually fix my problems." "That's very therapy talk of you." "I've been going. Twice a week." "Good." Wendy clinked her glass against mine. "Progress." I stayed for a week. Mom's tests came back better than expected. The cancer was stage 1. Treatable, good prognosis with surgery. The relief was overwhelming. The night before I flew back to Denver, Dad came to find me on the porch. "I'm glad you came," he said. His voice was stiff, uncomfortable, but he was trying. "Me too." "What you did." He stopped. Started again. "What you did was wrong, and it hurt a lot of people. But you're still my daughter." "I know, and I'm sorry." He nodded once, then went back inside. It wasn't forgiveness. Not really, but it was a start. Final update. 1 year. 12 months since I destroyed my marriage, blamed my disabled husband, and ran away to Denver to escape the consequences of my own choices. I want to tell you that I'm fixed now. That therapy cured me, and I'm some kind of redemption success story. But that's not how it works. I'm still a work in progress. Some days I'm proud of how far I've come. Other days I look in the mirror and still see the woman who accused an innocent man to save herself. But here's what I've learned. Growth isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. About facing the ugly parts of yourself and choosing, every single day, to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. I still live in Denver. Still have my tiny apartment, though I'm looking at buying something small now that I've been saving. Clark and I are still friends. She introduced me to her running group, and now I do 5Ks every few months. Nothing impressive, but I finish every time. Work is going well. I got another promotion last month. My team says I'm a good manager, that I actually listen to them instead of just telling them what to do. That felt good to hear. I talk to my parents regularly now. Dad and I aren't close, probably never will be, but we're civil. Mom finished her treatment and is cancer-free. She calls me every Sunday to chat about nothing in particular. I look forward to those calls. Wendy got engaged. She asked me to be her maid of honor. I cried when she asked because it meant she still believed in me, even after everything. I haven't dated. Not because I'm opposed to it, but because I wanted to make sure I could be alone first. Dr. Yolanda says that's healthy, learning to be comfortable by yourself before trying to share your life with someone else. As for Greg and Amy, I heard they got married 6 months ago. Wendy saw the pictures online. They looked happy. He was standing next to her in the photos, actually standing, with some kind of support device. His recovery must have gone better than expected. I was happy for them, genuinely, which surprised me, because a year ago I would have been jealous or angry or both. But now, I just felt glad. Glad that he found someone who deserved him. Glad that his life turned out better without me in it. Last month, something happened that felt like the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. I was at a coffee shop, the same one where I'd run into Josh almost a year earlier. A woman sat down across from me. I didn't recognize her at first. It was Natalie, Josh's ex-wife. "I thought that was you," she said. "I moved here about 2 months ago. Got a job offer I couldn't refuse. Small world. Very." She studied my face. "You look different. Healthier. Therapy, running, not lying to myself anymore." She actually laughed at that. Fair enough. We ended up talking for over an hour. About what had happened, where we'd been, who we'd become. Natalie had remarried. She showed me pictures of her new husband, a pediatrician named Omar who looked kind in every photo. Her kids were thriving. Josh had minimal custody and had moved to another state. I spent a long time hating you, she admitted. You were an easy target. The other woman, the homewrecker, I was those things. You were, but you were also being lied to. Josh is the one who made vows to me. You're the one who used to break them. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it puts it in perspective. She stirred her coffee. I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you deserved it, but because I needed to stop carrying it. There it was again. That same lesson. Forgiveness as freedom for the one doing the forgiving. Thank you, I said, for telling me that. We both got played by the same man. Maybe that makes us kindred spirits. She smiled slightly. Or maybe it just makes us two women who learned the hard way that people aren't always what they seem. We exchanged numbers before she left. I don't know if we'll ever be friends, but there was something healing about that conversation. One more piece of the past that no longer had power over me. I went home that night and looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. The woman staring back at me had made terrible choices, had hurt people who didn't deserve it, had lied and manipulated and blamed others for her own failures. But she had also put in the work to change, had faced her demons instead of running from them, had learned, slowly and painfully, what it meant to be accountable. That woman wasn't perfect, would never be perfect, but she was trying, and that had to count for something. I used to think that redemption was about erasing the past, about somehow becoming a person who hadn't done those terrible things, but now I understand it differently. Redemption is about carrying the weight of your mistakes while still moving forward, about letting those failures teach you instead of define you, about waking up every day and choosing to be better, even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching, even when part of you still wants to take the easy way out. A year ago, I was the villain of my own story. I blamed a man in a wheelchair for my affair. I lied to everyone, including myself. Now I'm just a woman trying to do better. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one small act of honesty at a time. It's not a happy ending, not really, but it's a real one, and maybe that's enough.